With the Simplex method, I wanted to talk to you how to recognize what they are considering basic variables versus non-basic variables, especially when they have not labeled their rows as I showed you how to label as you were doing the Simplex method. So when you're looking at an actual matrix, you're going to look where you have columns that look like the identity matrix. So for example, when I look at this column, remember the identity matrix has all zeros and ones. You will notice that that particular column has a 0, 1, and a 0. So because of that, that makes it what we call a basic variable. So if I look for other columns that are part of the identity matrix, you'll notice column S2 has a 1, 0, 0, so it is also considered a basic variable. And then finally, your Z column has a 0, 0, and a 1. So that's why when they ask you what are your basic variables, they are identifying those as S2, X2, and your Z. Okay, so then if a variable is not considered basic, it is considered non-basic. So if you actually look in the matrix and you look for the columns that do not have ones and zeros, so you have your X1, you have your X3, and your S1, those are considered the non-basic variables. Now, the way that we read our answers when they have not labeled the particular rows is you have to look at where the 1 is. So for example, right here, when the 1 is here, since that is the column of X2, then that tells you the value of your X2 is actually 16. Okay? When you look at this column, since the 1 is here and the label of that column is S2, then that tells me the value of S2 is actually 29. And then finally, on the Z, since the 1 is here and it's labeled as Z, then that tells me the value of Z is 11. And then any of my non-basic variables, they have values of 0. So that's why the remainder of these is 0. Now, how do I know if this solution is a maximum? Well, that is where I am looking at the bottom row of indicators, which are all of these. And if there are no longer any negatives, that tells me I am finished with the problem. And if I am finished, then I have found my maximum solution.